15 signs you're having a midlife crisis. Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that affects many people in their 40s and 50s, the midlife crisis. If you're feeling lost, confused, or unfulfilled, you might be going through a midlife crisis. In this video, we're going to share 15 signs that you're having a midlife crisis. Let's get started. Midlife crises are common for both men and women in middle age, but as an article from the Cleveland Clinic explains, midlife crises can present a little differently in women as compared to men. What are the common signs of a midlife crisis? Here are 17 common warning signs that experts say can signal a midlife crisis in women. Number 1. You're gaining or losing weight. Midlife crises often share similar traits with depression, according to Jennifer Wickham, a licensed professional counselor for Mayo Clinic Health System, with drastic changes in weight being one of them. The American Psychological Association also lists weight gain or loss as one of the many disruptive factors that may indicate a person is having an emotional crisis. Number 2. You're apathetic. If you or someone you know has suddenly lost interest or enthusiasm for the things in life that they used to enjoy, that could be a sign of an oncoming emotional crisis, and possibly something that could be defined as a midlife crisis. According to self-help author Yocheved Golani, apathy adds a deeper, more complicated layer to a midlife crisis, as it can affect how willing a person is to help themselves or seek out help. Christine Huber, a member of the Forbes Coaches Council, encourages those who are feeling apathetic to think every day about what positive things they have going on for them. Resolutely move forward, let go and leave the past in the past. Number 3. You're experiencing unusual physical pain. It's no secret that psychological difficulties can result in physical manifestations of the problem, and midlife crises are no different. Headaches and gastrointestinal issues that don't seem to have any physical cause, and more often than not don't respond to usual medical, are often linked to this kind of emotional crisis, according to Mayo Clinic. In an article for the Los Angeles Times, Dr. Yolanda Reed Chasiakos chronicles a patient who began experiencing physical symptoms, most notably intense migraines, due to the stressors she was feeling at mid-age. Number 4. You're experiencing unusual physical pain. One of the things that can happen and identify the onset of a midlife crisis is feeling ill-fit for the life you're leading, says Dr. Robbie Ludwig. There's a tendency to stop and pause during midlife and question whether you're on the right track. In other words, you feel the need to give yourself a strong evaluation about where you wanted to be in life versus where you actually are. Perhaps you realize you've been following the dreams your parents set out for you, or you've been abiding by the rules of society. There's suddenly a stronger desire to listen to one's soul, and perhaps the crisis comes when you feel off track, Dr. Ludwig continues. This enhanced curiosity may be the silver lining of crisis, stated the co-author of the research in the press release. Armed with this knowledge, people may find the crises of adult life easier to bear. Number 5. You're experiencing unusual physical pain. As a result of soul-searching, it's possible that you've drawn some significant conclusions about the state of your life. Like perhaps that your marriage isn't as romantic as you had hoped, or your career is no longer fulfilling. The danger is when somebody makes an impulsive decision, like a knee-jerk reaction, based on these feelings. It might not lead to therapeutic results, Dr. Ludwig says. Acting before thinking about the possible long-term ramifications of leaving your spouse or quitting your job, for example, can lead you down a road of regret. Overall, it's an avoidance of reality. Number 6. You're turning down opportunities. If you find yourself actively and confidently saying no to certain things and setting new boundaries in your life, this could be a sign of a midlife shift. Thankfully, this change is not necessarily a bad thing. For some, a midlife crisis might manifest in actions such as forming new relationships, enjoying the fruits of their labor through new purchases or adventurous travel, or a change in appearance, Dr. Lyons explains. For others, a midlife crisis might be seen in what they choose not to do, such as turning down opportunities or setting new boundaries that suggest a shift to defining life for themselves rather than by other standards. Number 7. You're not sleeping through the night. If you're a middle-aged woman and find yourself unable to sleep through the night, it's totally possible that menopause or other hormonal changes might be behind the bout of tossing and turning. In fact, the National Sleep Foundation states that waning levels of estrogen during perimenopause through menopause can make a woman more susceptible to environmental and other factors, which can further disrupt sleep and lead to insomnia. However, it's extremely important not to conflate menopause with a midlife crisis or other mental health ailments. If you are a woman who happens to be middle-aged and you're experiencing many of the other symptoms listed here, it's worth considering that your sleeplessness could actually have to do with your mental health. Number 8. Your vision of the future is dismal. One of the wonderful things about youth is that you really think you have all the time in the world and the future is where all your dreams will come true, says Dr. Ludwig. That shifts at midlife, so the future isn't necessarily where all of these positive things are happening. In fact, it can potentially be a scary time. While it's natural to remove those rose-colored glasses, feeling jaded about what's in store or seeing nothing but a bleak forecast ahead can lead to a downward spiral. And believe it or not, it might be wise to take a life lesson from those 20-somethings, she adds. Those in their youth see the future in a more optimistic way, and that's something we need to be deliberate about in midlife, because we've been culturally trained to believe in the deficit model, Dr. Ludwig says. Number 9. You're constantly bored. Boredom, feeling passionless, can be a sign of a midlife crisis, according to Dr. Ludwig. The truth is, the pressures of adulthood can weigh people down at this time. They can feel stuck in a rut, where the opportunity to introduce fun for fun's sake can get lost. A possible solution: doing something outside of your typical routine that lights you up. For example, if you enjoy watching cooking shows about desserts, consider signing up for a cake decorating class. Number 10. You have an overwhelming sense of loss. Do you have this nagging feeling that something in your life has slipped away, yet you can't quite put your finger on what that thing is? I don't know if I would call it clinical depression, but there is a dealing of some degree of loss, Dr. Ludwig says. The loss of a wish, the loss of the idea of who you wanted to be. It's a confrontation with reality that can leave people feeling disappointed and unsettled. For others, it could be that previous goals have been met. So whether or not we've accomplished our goals, we can create new goals. Also, having the belief that there must be something more ahead can be a good thing, because we're never going to arrive at the there place because there's always going to be a new there. Number 11. You become overly concerned about your appearance. Wanting to look and feel your best is one thing, but staring into a mirror for hours to point out emerging lines and wrinkles could indicate a crisis. And some people will go to extremes trying to achieve a look of youth or perfection, says Dr. Ludwig. Sadly, they tend to ruin themselves. It's like that false plant that is too green and too perfect. This behavior is based in fear of losing one's looks, but this is cultural brainwashing. She adds that single people are likely to obsess more over their changing face compared to those in committed relationships, who tend to care more about their weight and being fit. And this is true for both men and women. It's a response to physical changes that identify there's an inevitable shift going on. But it doesn't have to be worse. Number 12. Or you stop caring about appearances completely. While some women in their middle years become fixated on perfecting their appearance, others may trash their beauty products altogether or stop picking up their broom on a regular basis. People should never give up on themselves, but if they do, they're probably more inclined to experience a midlife crisis, says Dr. Ludwig, who suggests finding an older woman role model who can serve as motivation. Number 13. You think of yourself as an old person. Take a quiet moment to close your eyes and ask yourself this simple question. How old do I feel? If you consider yourself to be older than your years, or refer to yourself as being an old lady, or over the hill, you might be in a midlife crisis. And science backs up this theory. A 10-year study conducted at the University of Waterloo found that simply feeling older predicts lower psychological well-being and lower life satisfaction compared to those with more favorable attitudes about aging. Number 14. You think your best years are behind you. Believing that all of the wonderful happenings that will occur in your lifetime have already taken place can be a sign that you're in crisis mode. Again, it's about losing that sense of excitement, states Dr. Ludwig. However, she says this belief is a fallacy. Isn't it sad that we train people to think that the only time they can have happiness is when they're young? And it's so not true. She continues. The nice thing, and this is something we overlook culturally, is that many people have the best times of their lives as they get older. Why? Because your enjoyment with life has less to do with age and more to do with how gratified you are and how good you feel about yourself. And that can happen at any point. Number 15. You think your best years are behind you. Even though the term midlife crisis was coined in 1965, ongoing research indicates that this so-called crisis may not even exist. According to a 25-year longitudinal study conducted by the University of Alberta, happiness does not come to a screeching halt when you turn 40. Instead, there is an overall upward trajectory of happiness that begins in our teens and early 20s. I think it's important that we redefine the midlife crisis, and we make it potentially be something good. Dr. Ludwig says. Sometimes in the crisis, you are evaluating what is no longer working in your life and trying to introduce people, places, and things that might be useful, of value, or bring joy. And that's it for our video on 15 signs you're having a midlife crisis. If you're experiencing any of these symptoms, know that you're not alone. It's normal to feel lost or confused at this stage in life, but there are ways to overcome it. Seek support from friends, family, or a therapist, and remember that it's never too late to make a change in your life. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.